Are non-binary folks trans? The short answer is yes. Why is that? Well, the definition of trans is anyone whose gender identity does not correspond with what they were assigned with at birth. And while the common association is moving from one binary identity to another, gender is, as we know, a spectrum, and there are endless ways we can identify, transition, and choose to exist outside of gender identities altogether. Non-binary folks are simply those who fall outside of the gender binary. And because non-binary folks like myself are using a gender identity different than what we were assigned at birth, regardless of what we consider that identity to personally be, we are trans by default. Non-binary directly falls under the trans umbrella and even has its own sub-umbrella of identities like genderqueer, gender fluid, agender, and much more. Do all non-binary people resonate with being labeled as trans? No. And while we're all entitled to choose the language that defines us, I overwhelmingly find that the reason why non-binary folks don't want to be labeled as trans is usually problematic. Probably the most common reasons I hear revolve around not feeling like they have the right to because either 1, they look cis, 2, they haven't transitioned physically, or 3, they don't experience the same level of marginalization as other trans people. And while these are all points to touch on your own privilege, I'm afraid they run into some deeply troubling ideologies. 1. You don't look trans? What does that mean? Yes, we can all agree that trans folks face far more discrimination when they visually look trans or don't pass, but does a passing trans person suddenly become not trans? No, because your appearance or even your pronouns are not a prerequisite for transness, it's how you feel inside. 2. You haven't had to physically transition? I'm afraid this is a big part of trans medicalism, a problematic ideology that says all trans people must experience gender dysphoria or extreme discomfort in their current body and require medical intervention to transition. People prior to transition are still trans. People who don't want to transition at all are still trans. And people who never get the ability to physically transition are still trans. There's also ways to transition that go beyond the obvious physical ones. Social transition is a big milestone and is still transitioning. 3. You don't experience the same level of marginalization as other trans people? While I agree that it's absolutely privileged to look cis, to not have to seek gender-affirming healthcare and the endless hoops that come with it, like hundreds of anti-trans bills, that doesn't make you not trans. Every marginalized community has folks who are most impacted and less impacted. This is no exception. For example, just because I'm a light-skinned Korean person doesn't mean I'm not a person of color. It just means I experience privileges because of my skin tone appearance compared to other black and brown people of color. You can and should acknowledge this privilege, but turning away the whole label together only seeks to stigmatize transness and separate yourself from it. Should you be the face and voice of transness as a non-binary person who hasn't had to face marginalization in these ways? Probably not. But can you use that privilege to uplift other trans people who do? Yes. Do you need to use the label trans primarily? No. And sometimes it makes sense for me to say, I'm a queer trans person of color, and sometimes it makes sense to say, I'm a Korean asexual non-binary person. Both are true. And regardless of if you are seeking gender-affirming care or not, continued attacks on trans people and their rights are relevant, alarming, and impact all of us. Bye, friends.